In this 6th video in my Attack on Titan arc analysis series, I'll be covering the Uprising arc, or otherwise known as the Royal Government arc. This is considered to be one of the more controversial portions of the Attack on Titan story. This is because it attempts to tell us a different kind of story than what we have seen up until this point. A shift occurs where we are no longer focused on battling against man-eating giants. Instead, we turn our attention over to the internal politics that occur within the walls. This arc begins with the death of Pastor Nick from the Order of the Walls, and it also leads into an attempted kidnap of both Eren and Historia. While this is going on, Commander Erwin also believes that the monarchy who are currently ruling over humanity are endangering them, and this is what brings about his plan to cause an uprising, so that the current government are overthrown and run by military rule, and the current monarchy are replaced by Historia as the new queen. The Uprising arc takes place between chapters 51 to 70 of the manga, and it is adapted into episodes 38 to 49 of the anime. In this video, I'll give you some background information before diving into the deeper aspects of this arc. I'll also try to explain what Isayama was trying to do with this arc. So let's begin my review and analysis of the 6th arc of Attack on Titan, the Uprising arc. The Uprising arc has come to be known as one of the more weaker or slower portions of the Attack on Titan story. The frustration from fans was understandable, as the story up until this point was so heavily focused upon the Titans. It was jarring to suddenly remove them from the picture. The Uprising arc, as the title suggests, is a story about overthrowing the current establishment and instating people into power who prioritize the advancement of humanity. However, the way that the story was executed within the manga was called into question, due to lacking the bombastic action that we all had grown to love. Instead, the story had favored to go for more of a dialogue-heavy approach. Even Hajime Isayama had expressed his concern over the way that this story arc was told within the pages of his manga. Because of this concern, he had involved himself closely with the anime adaptation of the Uprising arc. He had helped to make it feel more streamlined and more easier to digest. This streamlining of this arc appears to have been successful, as 19 chapters were adapted into 11 episodes. The changes that were made, I feel, made the anime version of this arc far more enjoyable than its manga counterpart. This arc focuses on the actions of the monarchy who comfortably reside within the interior, as they are protected by Wall Sina. We learn how the monarchy has little to no care for mankind, and it falls upon the leader of the Survey Corps to devise a plan to overthrow the government and the monarchy. As a general rule of thumb, the anime pads out the action during this arc, and reduces a lot of the dialogue in comparison to its manga counterpart. The previous season was building on this notion that there are people within the walls who are keeping secrets from the rest of humanity, and ultimately stifling their progress against the Titans. This was first brought to our attention through the reaction of Pastor Nick after seeing the Titan within the wall and demanding it to be covered from the sunlight. The fallout from the false alarm that Wall Rose had been breached resulted in tension boiling over between the people of the walls and the interior military police. Food supplies quickly ran out for the people who fled Wall Rose, and the people ultimately were forced to see the disparity between those who live on the interior and the exterior of Wall Sina. Thankfully, Wall Rose was not breached, but the fear and tension between the residents is palpable. After the return of the Survey Corps, Squad Levi was rebuilt with the best cadets from the 104th Corps. Armin was assigned to guard both Eren and Historia, who was formerly known as Krista. We also know at this point that she is the illegitimate heir to the throne. This arc begins with the shocking news that Pastor Nick, who was being guarded by the Survey Corps, was found murdered in his barracks. His death is being investigated by the military police regiment. Hanji was prevented from examining the crime scene by members of the interior police, who don't usually operate outside of the capital city of Wall Sina. They try to cover up the murder of the pastor, but Hanji suspects that they know too much not to be involved in his death. Meanwhile, Erwin had ordered for all activity of the scouts outside of the walls to halt, affecting Squad Hanji and Squad Levi. The military police revealed the true intentions of those in power by detaining Erwin. Thankfully, Levi and Hanji squads were able to flee before being captured. Squad Levi escapes to the Trost district in order to maintain a safe distance from the interior police. While here, 2 members of Squad Levi are suddenly kidnapped. They had been anticipating for this to happen, so in preparation they had disguised Jean and Armin as Eren and Historia. They are the targets who the government desires to detain. The kidnappers are very amateurish and no match for Levi's skillful squad. They are followed to a warehouse where they are apprehended. While they retrieve the disguised Armin and Jean, the real Eren and Historia are being transported to Commander Pixis. That is until their carriage is ambushed ambushed by an elite squad led by a new face called Kenny Ackerman, who is working for the Interior Military Police. Kenny and his squad are successful in kidnapping Historia and Eren, as Squad Levi are powerless to do anything to stop them. Squad Levi was reformed with the purpose of protecting Eren and Historia, two very important figures who hold the future of humanity in their hands. This desire to recapture Wall Maria had been a major priority for the Survey Corps. However, this plan relies upon Eren being able to effectively utilize the hardening ability of his Titan. These plans to seal Wall Maria and reclaim their lost territory are put on hold. Most fans didn't like this diversion the story had taken, but I felt that it was necessary in order to expand upon the lore of the world, and to put right the power imbalance which exists between the interior and exterior walls. Sure, I want to know about the secrets hidden within the basement, and to see Reiner, Bertolt and the Beast Titan again, but there are some unresolved plot points when it comes to corruption found within certain factions of humanity. The Uprising arc is political and dialogue heavy, but I have no issue with this. If there was only action without exposition, then what reason would we have to care about the fighting or the outcome of said battles? Squad Levi returns to the warehouse and learns that the kidnappers were led by Reiss, the head of the Reeves Company, who are a merchant organization located within the Trost district. The head of the company was forced to cooperate with the military police as his family and business had been threatened. Levi is able to persuade Reeves into working with the Survey Corps, and thanks to his help, two members of the Interior Police were lured and captured for interrogation. Meanwhile, Hanji informs Erwin that Historia and Eren have been kidnapped, and there are fears that Eren could be eaten, which seems totally bizarre and out of nowhere. Hanji then returns to assist Levi in interrogating the two Interior MPs. Through manipulating them, they are able to get a confession and learn that the Reiss family is the true royal family. Hanji is now able to deduce that Eren and Historia have been taken to Rod Reiss. Meanwhile, Kenny kills Reiss after he had betrayed him, but Kenny is unaware that this murder was witnessed by the son of Reiss, Flegel Reeves. Like I mentioned earlier, the priority is to recapture Wall Maria, but in order to do this, the government and the current monarchy must be overthrown. Erwin is aware of this and proposes a plan to Commander Pixis. However, this plan entails humans turning against humans, as the Survey Corps are put in a difficult position to kill people that they have been fighting to protect from Titans this whole time. The situation is such that they cannot make further progress and work towards a world of freedom if they don't get rid of the bad characters from within their own ranks. Erwin reveals to Pixis about the death of his own father, who had believed that the monarchy had altered the memories of the surviving members of humanity prior to entering into the walls. Erwin's father had realized that this was done so that they would be easier to manipulate. From a young age, Erwin had realized that the people holding higher ranks within government did not care about protecting humanity. They were far more concerned about their own wealth and material possessions. They would even go as far as to kill their own, as long as it meant that they would keep their land and wealth safe. Erwin shares his plan to Commander Pixis to reinstate the true royal family in place of the current false king, King Fritz. This is because Historia Reiss comes from a royal bloodline, so she is the rightful heir to the throne. Erwin's plan is to instate her as the rightful queen and to bring back hope to humanity. Pixis agrees to this plan and decides to support Erwin. Shortly after, Erwin and the scouts were framed for the murder of Reeves. A fabricated story was circulated about how Reeves had kidnapped Eren so that they could avoid handing him over to the government. The story goes on to falsely claim that once Reeves' role was played, the scouts had apparently killed him in order to prevent him from revealing their plan. Erwin and the Survey Corps were set up and were thus ordered to be captured and held behind bars. Hanji is able to evade capture and finds Flegel Reeves, who, as we know, saw the true perpetrator of his father's murder, Kenny Ackerman. Government corruption is at the center of everything, so for this reason, exposing this to the general public is a priority. Hanji and Flegel are able to force a confession of truth from two members of the Interior Police, who revealed that Reeves was killed because he had betrayed them and sided with the Survey Corps. The truth about his death and involvement in the kidnappings is witnessed and heard by several people in the densely populated buildings surrounding them. Among the witnesses are a pair of journalists who are convinced to report the truth within the papers. Once the story is published, the government's corruption is exposed, and in turn it proves the innocence of Erwin and the Survey Corps. After being captured, beaten, and chained to the wall, Erwin was brought before the high-ranking members of the government in order to defend himself and his scouts. He reminds them of the value that the Survey Corps holds, as they are the most effective weapon humanity has against the Titans. In the event that Wall Rose is breached and people flock to the interior, then food supplies would quickly diminish. In this event, it would be the scouts who would be relied upon in order to reclaim lost territory in order to restore any shortages in food or resources. Despite fighting his case, his audience was unmoved. They cited the Charter of Humanity, which states that thou shalt not prioritize one's own gain over the longevity of humanity. Erwin's actions have apparently been contradictory to this charter, as he has continually refused to hand over Eren. They perceive Eren to be too dangerous for Erwin to control. His non-compliance with their order is in breach of the Charter of Humanity. For this, they pass judgment onto Erwin, deciding to execute him for his disobedience and apparently putting his own interests before those of humanity. As Erwin is being escorted out, a member of the garrison interrupts them to announce that the Colossal and Armored Titan have breached Wall Rose. Apparently, inhabitants of the area are already fleeing into the interior. Commander Pixis, who is among the assembly of nobles and upper brass, tells his men to organize an evacuation route for the refugees. However, a high-ranking noble member of the King Fritz assembly orders to close the gates of Wall Sina, effectively passing a death sentence onto more than half of humanity. The noble was unfazed by the thought of allowing countless people to die. He was more bothered about the possibility of civil unrest, which would unfold over fighting for food and resources. The commander of the military police, Niall Dock, being an inhabitant of Wall Rose himself, refuses to close the gates, and he is supported in his decision by Dallas Zachary, who is the commander-in-chief of the 3 military regiments. This news of Wall Rose being breached was a ruse in order to discover where the priorities of the government lie. Of course, we quickly established that the current government is not fit for protecting humanity. They are only concerned with their own selfish interests. After this, the government was successfully overthrown as news was published revealing the truth about King Fritz and how the government had framed the Survey Corps. Erwin was freed and the military had seized control over the government, having successfully accomplished their coup d'etat. The military now desired to place Historia, who is a true member of the royal family, as the new monarch. While Erwin was being sentenced, Squad Levi had made their way to the Stoes district, learning about the arrests of the Survey Corps. While camping in the woods and trying to devise a plan to rescue Eren and Historia, they end up capturing 2 members of the military police, Hitch and Marlowe. We of course are acquainted to them through Annie, as they are her former comrades from a short time within the military police. They have been ordered to locate and arrest the members of the Survey Corps who were found to be evading arrest. With time of the essence, finding out about Eren's location is crucial. Levi intends to use their uniforms to disguise themselves and infiltrate within the military police in order to find out where Eren has been taken to. Marlowe and Hitch end up cooperating with them, desiring to right any injustices being done, and siding with them against the government. After leading Squad Levi to a checkpoint that is not heavily guarded, they capture and interrogate a member of the interior police, learning that an individual called Kenny Ackerman is working for the military police. Hanji eventually regroups with Squad Levi, informing them of the successful coup and how the truth about the government was exposed to the public via the tabloids. After speaking, they confirm that Historia and Eren have been taken to Reiss, likely because there is something special about Historia's bloodline and they require Eren's powers. The night that Wall Maria was breached, most of the Reiss family was murdered while praying in a chapel. Reiss was the only survivor of this attack. The chapel was rebuilt immediately and Reiss had rekindled his bond with Historia after the death of his family. The Reiss family possesses a method to alter the memories of humanity. Commander Pixis had learnt this through questioning the captured government officials. They state that it is necessary for the Reiss family to ensure that humanity remains manipulated and subservient. The concern now is that if Reiss manages to control Eren's coordinate ability, then all of their actions trying to overthrow the government would be undone. For whatever reason, Reiss and the corrupt government prefers if humanity remained caged within the walls. After learning of this, Eren and the scouts make their way towards the chapel, where they believe Reiss and Eren to be located. Hanji and Squad Levi arrive at the chapel to retrieve Eren and Historia from Kenny and his subordinates. While his friends arrive to rescue him, Eren is tied up in an underground cavern. Historia and Reiss touch his back and help him to restore his memories from his father Grisha. This is where we learn that Grisha had found the Reiss family the night that Wall Maria was breached. He had found them underground beneath the chapel. Grisha had turned into a titan and had eaten Frida Reiss in order to steal her titan powers. He also killed the remaining members of the Reiss family. The truth about the walls is also revealed here, as we find out that the first king Reiss had used the powers of the founding titan to create the 3 walls and change the memories of humanity. Reiss wants to return the powers of the founding titan to his bloodline, because Eren cannot use the full powers of the founding titan, as he is not from the Reiss bloodline. After this revelation occurs, Eren feels an immense amount of guilt, as he is saddened by the number of people who had sacrificed their lives so that he could live. He is so demotivated demoralized, he just tells Historia to inject herself and to turn into a Titan in order to eat him, telling her to save humanity instead. When Historia remembers Ymr's advice to live a life that she could look back and be proud of, she ends up breaking the syringe that would have transformed her into a Titan. She tries to free Eren and takes her father's bag full of various different substances for injection. Reiss, who didn't expect his daughter to betray him, licks the fluid that poured out of the broken syringe and himself transforms into a giant Titan. The transformation sweeps Historia off of her feet, preventing her from freeing Eren. Squad Levi unties Eren while the cavern collapses in on itself due to the size of Reiss's Titan. Eren is still saddened after learning about how his father had died and apologizes to his friends for always getting captured and relying on their help. Surprisingly, he is scolded by Historia and Levi. He then ends up drinking the contents of a syringe labeled armor and transforms into his Titan form. This allows Eren to harden his Titan and create a structure that would prevent the cavern from collapsing. Levi and the others escape as they see Rod's Titan slowly making his way towards Walsina. After leaving the chapel with Eren and Historia, Squad Levi arrives at the Overd district as they plan a strategy to lure and defeat Rod's Titan. Historia here is told that she will become the new queen. She accepts her position as long as she is able to rule the way that she wants to. When Rod's Titan arrives and towers over the wall of the Overd district, Eren transforms into his Titan form, attacking the Titan with a net full of barrels of gunpowder. The net lands in the mouth of the Titan and combusts due to the heat generated from the Titan's body. Historia and the other scouts successfully attack the pieces of the Titan in hopes that they can find its nape, preventing it from regenerating its body. Historia is able to successfully cut through the piece which was the Titan's nape, thus killing her father and ending his reign over humanity. She has stopped the Reiss family from hiding the truth from the rest of humanity and sets up a new course of action where humanity can be liberated from the walls. Historia is then greeted by the people of Overd as she declares that she is the rightful ruler of the walls and their new queen. After the defeat of Reiss and the removal of the government, Historia was crowned as the queen of the walls. She may have been the face of leadership, but in actual fact, the military were now in control of the decisions made from the government. Historia was regarded as being a compassionate ruler and one who earned the respect of her citizens by killing the Titan at the Overd district. At the end of this arc, we see the Beast Titan order Bertolt and Reiner to retrieve Eren and his founding Titan abilities. In the meantime, a new method to kill the Titans was devised by Hanji, as she uses Eren's perfected hardening ability to create an executioner from hell. This enables the military to kill Titans without even having to leave the safety of the walls. At the end of the Uprising arc, we see Kenny Ackerman hand Levi a syringe that he had salvaged from the underground cavern. We assume that this is the injection that will turn an individual into a Titan. Humanity had also discovered hidden technologies and inventions that were being concealed by the interior police. These new discoveries would assist them in their battles against the Titans. An example of such an invention was the Thunder Spear. The Uprising arc concludes with the Survey Corps gaining more recruits and the full support from the people of the walls. We end this arc and begin the long-awaited return to Shiganshina. Finally, the Survey Corps are making their way to seal the breach which plunged humanity into darkness, and at the same time we are at the cusp of learning about the truth that is hidden within the basement. Now, I mentioned earlier on in the video that some changes were made between the anime and manga version of the Uprising arc. Here are some of the more notable alterations that were made. The most significant change was the way that the 104th Corps were questioning the morality behind killing humans in order to fulfill their mission. They had joined the Survey Corps in order to save people and kill Titans. They are conflicted when it comes to justifying the killing of other humans, even if it is for the betterment of mankind. The manga pays particular attention to drilling home the conflict that the characters are facing, as opposed to the anime version, which I feel glances over this topic. Another change is how the members of the Tross district yell and berate Levi and the others, holding them responsible for the food shortages. Levi doesn't fight back and appears to listen and empathize with the concerns of the people. This was removed from the anime version. The anime also differs when it comes to the timing and execution of Eren and Historia's kidnapping. It happens much sooner in the anime, while in the manga they are around for a little while longer. Another change that is made early on in this arc is when Eren is testing his Titan hardening abilities. These tests are more thorough and explained in more detail within the manga. The source material reveals multiple attempts at transforming. We also learn that Eren's control over his Titan diminishes for two reasons. The first being the length of time that he is in his Titan form, and the second being if he repeatedly transforms without a sufficient sufficient break. At the end of the testing, Eren feels like a failure, since he feels responsible for not being able to recapture Wall Maria because of his lack of control over his Titan and the limitations in his power. In the manga, Levi encourages Eren, and moments like this are rare when it comes to Levi's character. He tells Eren that while they may be safe within the walls, a new world awaits them beyond the horizon. Even if that world is far more dangerous than this one, Levi says he prefers the latter. This is what they are fighting and enduring all of this hardship for. They are persevering to give humanity this freedom. When Eren speaks to Pixis about his father's theory, he mentions how Annie and Eren were able to control the Titans through screaming. He states that humans and Titans seem to be related in some way. Through this assumption, it is safe to assume that mankind could also be controlled by the Titan's screams in the same way the Titans are manipulated by it. Erwin even mentions how the government only started to become more involved with what the Survey Corps and Eren were doing once they had learned that Eren could control the Titans. A detailed version of this discussion is also omitted from the anime adaptation. Another change occurs with a discussion of whether if it is right to kill people. This concern is highlighted by Jean and Sasha, who raise the matter with Levi, as they question him about killing people, and if his actions were justified when he had threatened Historia to take up the position of queen, while she was distraught and doubting herself. Like I mentioned, a lot of the dialogue-heavy portions are condensed and removed, but if they had remained intact, then they would have helped to shine a spotlight on some of the concerns the characters were facing during this arc. At the end of the day, the changes that were made to the anime version of the Uprising arc were done under the supervision and permission of Hajime Isayama, who himself was disappointed by the way he had told this portion of the story in his manga. After having improved his storytelling technique and looking back at his own work, he wanted to make sure that the anime version did not suffer from any needless padding and unnecessary exposition. Early on in this arc, we get a flashback where we learn about Historia's past and the circumstances relating to her birth and upbringing. We find out that she had led a very isolated life. This backstory is further expanded upon in the manga, when compared to how it was adapted in the anime version. In the original manga source material, we learn that not only did her mother behave cold towards her, she had grandparents who were not mentioned in the anime version who had also ignored her and were cold towards her. Her grandparents spoke to her only about matters relating to work, and the children she grew up around would also bully her and throw rocks at her. Historia had come to realize that her existence was not valued by those around her. If she wasn't around, then it wouldn't make a difference to anybody's life. The farm that she was raised on and worked in was the only world that she had known. Aside from this gated community, she had nobody else to seek refuge in. Historia had led this life for 5 years until her father Reiss had arrived to see her. The final significant event which occurs during this arc is Eren recalling his instructor from his years in the training corps, Commander Sadis. He remembers him from the memories that he had inherited from his father. When the Survey Corps question him, Sadis tells them that he had first met Grisha outside of Wall Maria. He appeared to have amnesia. Sadis tells the scouts about his memories of Eren's parents until the day that Wall Maria was breached. At the end of his explanation, he is scolded by Hanji, who accuses him of withholding information from the Survey Corps, and that he had joined the military for childish reasons, which stemmed from his desire to see if Eren was indeed special like his father Grisha had claimed him to be. Sadis was jealous and resented Grisha for marrying Carla, Eren's mother. We also learned that Sadis had purposefully damaged Eren's vertical maneuvering gear during his training in his attempt to sabotage Eren's advancement into the military. Overall, behind that cruel exterior, Sadis ended up being a coward, and somebody who behaved selfishly due to his feelings of jealousy and his own inadequacies when compared to Grisha Yeager. During the Uprising arc, some key revelations are made. Firstly, we find out where Eren's father Grisha Yeager was during the Titans' attack on Shiganshina. Secondly, we learn the truth about how Titan abilities are obtained and transferred between individuals. Thirdly, we find out who the real monarchy is, and why Historia plays an important role for the future of humanity. And lastly, we find out how Eren had obtained his Titan powers. The first half of Season 3 sets up the second half of the season excellently. In my opinion, it was very well paced, and each episode felt like it moved the plot along in some way, and it improved upon the manga version, which I do feel dragged on in some instances. The Uprising arc had many criticisms due to feeling too long-winded and generally being boring. The anime had began Season 3 by adapting the Uprising arc in a more improved way, really making you feel excited for what's to come after it. The long-awaited reveal for the truth in the basement is finally upon us during the second half of Season 3, with the focus being on returning to Shiganshina. The decisive battle will no doubt lead us to the highly anticipated basement reveal. Just what exactly did Eren's father hide in there? What is the truth behind the Titans? Where do they come from? Where is Reiner, Bertolt, and Annie's hometown? Finally, we are one step closer now to understanding the mystery behind the world of Attack on Titan. What I personally love is the build up behind Eren's character and his motivations. The backstory where we learn about him questioning the truth about the history of the world. Eren's father was a teacher, and he was forced to teach a falsified version of history which his son had questioned. This very questioning had led to the untimely demise of his father. The burden of finding out the truth within the basement weighs heavily on Eren's conscience. He and his father share in the dream of learning the true events of history that unfolded. He needs to know how the world came to be the way that it is. So the 7th video in my Attack on Titan series will cover the Return to Shiganshina arc. It features the Beast Titan who finally teams up with Reiner and Bertolt as they try to stop the Survey Corps from recapturing Wall Maria. For what purpose do they desire the destruction of humanity? How is it that the Beast Titan is able to summon and control Titans to his will? What about Connie's mother? Is this the definitive proof that Titans were originally humans? All of these questions were racing through my mind as I was going into the second half of season 3. Anime-only viewers have had to wait since 2013 to learn about the truth behind all of the nuance and mystery, as these plot points were left unanswered for years. Eren vowing to destroy every Titan seemed so long ago, and here we are now at the cusp of the decisive battle which will determine the future of humanity. The significance of the decisive battle taking place in Shiganshina is an excellent callback to the beginning of the series. The lead characters have not returned to their home for years. They now return stronger than before, but the wounds from that fateful day still remain. The resentment that Eren had felt against the Titans was birthed in this very district. It is a fitting location to decide the future of humanity. The stakes are higher than they have ever been. We know the true desire of Eren and his scouts, but contrastingly, we know little about the enemy that they're going up against. What is their true purpose? We know of Annie, Bertolt and Reiner's betrayal, but who or what is the Beast Titan? Who is controlling it, and how is this person connected to Reiner and Bertolt? Eren and the other Survey Corps members definitely have a grudge that needs to be settled, to know that the culprits for all of their anguish were hiding under their noses this entire time. Reiner, Bertolt and Annie are responsible for the loss, pain and suffering that was caused because of the breach of Wall Maria. The scouts are now determined to capture or kill their opponents, as they hope to use Eren's hardening ability to reseal the breach within Wall Maria, finally reclaiming the territory that was lost to the Titans and undoing the damage from 5 years ago. So definitely join me in my next video where I will be discussing one of the best anime and manga arcs ever, the Return to Shiganshina arc. Subscribe and turn on the bell notifications so you don't miss the video when it drops. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more like it, then please consider supporting my channel on Patreon. I have multiple tiers with rewards including access to an exclusive Discord server, video scripts, as well as being the first to know about unreleased upcoming videos. Thank you for your time, and whatever you choose to contribute I will appreciate, and it will mean a lot to me.